Welcome to the Dynamics Corner podcast, your go-to resource for all things Microsoft Dynamics 365. I'm your host, Kris.
And this is Brad. This episode is recorded on May 10th, 2023. Kris. This episode that we had today, to someone like myself, was amazing. Every episode's amazing. All our guests are amazing. But this episode was one episode that I have been looking forward to because there's been a lot of talk about it in the community. There's a lot of publicity about it, but a lot of questions of how do you do it? And in this episode, we had the opportunity to sit down with Krzysztof, I can't even try to pronounce his last name, KB, and Jesper to talk about contributing to the base application through the GitHub pilot for Business Central. Now, look at here. Now this party is complete, and it's proof that we'll just have anybody come on to this podcast.
What a nice welcome. Hey, everybody.
Hello. Good afternoon. Good morning. How are you doing? We always want you to feel welcome, so we do our best.
Mission accomplished.
To make sure everybody feels welcome. But thank you both for joining us today, this morning, this afternoon. I guess it depends on where we're located. We appreciate you taking the time to speak with us. And as with every episode, I think they're great episodes, but this is one that I've been looking forward to having for quite some time. And I'm happy that we're able to all connect. And I'm happy that you're both here. So thank you. But
yes, but no pressure for us, right?
No, there's no pressure.
I don't feel like
No pressure.
No, there's no pressure at all. It's just a casual conversation. As always. No, it's not. Yeah. And before we get into it, I have so many comments, so many questions, so many things that I want to talk about that we'll probably make this like a 12-part series because we'll have to break it up instead of long ones. But thank you both for joining us. But if you would, Jesper and Krzysztof. Krzysztof, I have to call you KB because I can't pronounce your name.
Yes.
So I'll just
Everyone
say
does.
KB. I do as well, but I want everyone to know. But if you would, before we get into it, could you just tell everyone a little bit about yourself? And then what we'll do is we'll jump into the topic that we're going to discuss today. So KB, if you go first, please.
Yeah, so hello. KB, as you hear. But in Poland, they call me Krzysztof Bialowas.
Bless you.
A lot of this, right? A lot of this. As I said, I'm from Poland with NAV and Business Central community for 13 years. The same as my marriage. The same year, almost.
So you're married to Business Central?
Yes, and my wife, the same time, right?
Aren't we all?
Yes, we are.
So first I was doing working for the partners. Then I moved to end user. So I pretty much know it from all sides how it's work and how community works and partner community as well. Now I'm working for the Danish company called Dynaway. I have also my own company. And I'm working as a system architect and also as developer and consultant / sales person. But maybe one thing before I would just switch to Jesper is the nice thing when I started was that in the company was the rule that you need to be a developer and a consultant at the same time. So we really needed to know the functionality side and technical side. So sometimes people ask me if I feel like a developer. Not always, right? Because I have all of that. And which I'm normally not saying, I'm also an MVP. So I'm really happy of that.
Congratulations.
That's
Congratulations
awesome.
on that. That is excellent. And I see we have this new thing, so I have to. Well, I didn't do it. See, always technical difficulty with me.
Now I'm scared.
Kris knows what I'm doing. Forget it. I will come back. I have a little soundboard now, and I wanted to do a clap, and the clap's not working. So we'll just clap. Congratulations on the MVP.
There
Here it comes.
Yes, there it is. Thank you.
And you do a lot of things for the community as well outside of what you do professionally. You do a lot of presentations at the conferences, and you also have a lot of content that you publish that's available to members of the community on the internet, which is great. I follow
Yes,
you,
thank you.
everything that you publish as well. So thank
Oh,
you for
wow.
that.
Thank you.
And then we'll jump over to you, Jesper.
Yeah, I'm Jesper, and I've been working for Microsoft on the Business Central team for 15 years now. Whenever we have like 5-year anniversary or 5, 10, 15, we get one of these crystals. So that one that I got now is like a big one. So 15 years, yeah. Um, and I came right out of college and joined the back then Dynamics NAV team. I think the first version that I worked on was the 2013 version. So a lot has happened since then. Never gets boring. But I started as a normal individual contributor and developer, and then I've slowly progressed into the role of being a manager. Um, and my team is called Application Foundation, and what we're doing is basically developing the system application and all the horizontal bits and pieces that you guys need to build on top of. And one thing that kind of came with this new system application, and we kind of refactored and tried to factor out these bits and pieces from the monolith-based application, was a vision of being more open about it and being more collaborative about the system application. So that's kind of how I slowly but steady progressed into the role of also being responsible for open source story, which is why I'm here today.
Yes.
And that's grown on me. I just I love the community so much, and the more I get to know people, the even more I love it. So I think only good can come out of us collaborating even closer, not just talking to each other, but actually collaborating on the code together. So that's kind of my love child at the moment, and I'm trying to push that forward the best that I can.
No,
A
you're
lot of
doing.
things to come.
Yes, no, you're doing a great job. And, a couple points. KB, one point that you mentioned about developers and functional consultants. I'm a firm advocate and believer of that as well, because I think in order for you to be able to develop within the application, having a good foundation and understanding of the application helps you deliver a better solution. Because I know back early on in the days of version 2.0 and 1.0, a lot of people, they really didn't understand the application, and they could develop easily in the application. So people would just create their own sales order processing system, for example. But now with the internet, with the community, with the open collaboration, as Jesper had talked about, which we'll jump into, I don't think there is a reason why somebody wouldn't understand the application and think that you can just develop a solution, because I think you need it to make for a quality modification or extension.
Yeah, to be honest, it has like pros and cons, which I see after those years. That the pro is, as you exactly said, and you can be very skilled in BC and doing all modifications also in BC, and even sometimes not doing the modifications, which is the best way. But from other side, now we also have a lot of things outside of BC, like Azure platform. And I think, like, for example, at least for me, is like, I know that, okay, we need to use Azure platform, but I prefer like our really, really like hard developer will do anything which is, for example, there. So as I said, has pros and cons, but for sure a lot of cons.
Yeah.
Pros. A lot of
Yes,
pros.
yes, yes. The application is evolving greatly. And one good thing is, like when we spoke about, along with the community, before we jump into the collaboration on the base app conversation, it's great now. I mean, we've all been in this community for quite some time. And now I feel like I know everybody, right? Because now if you look at us talking, Jesper, I think you're in Denmark, KB, you're in Warsaw, and now here we are all together, and we can easily talk and collaborate, and a lot of people I know that, when you meet them, you're like, wow, I feel like I've known you for years, because I see the contributions that you make to the community. I see what you do for the community. So I think it's great. And I enjoy speaking with everybody, domestically for both Kris and I, and also, internationally speaking with members of the community. It's just opened it up so much more, which will lead us into, what we wanted to talk about today. Is the is the base app. I'm like a kid with a new toy. because if
I couldn't
you've
control
listened
myself if I had one of those.
Yes, no, it's tough because now that we switched over to using this and I have this soundboard, like I just like clicking all these buttons and it's just fun. So I'll just randomly click some buttons. But the base app contribution and what you had referenced was open sourcing of the base app, which allows community members to contribute. And I've been interested in and fascinated with this concept, and I have a lot of questions, and I'm sure many other people have questions too. But you started this effort back, I think it was in September, October of 2022, correct? Where you allowed members of the community to request participation in the pilot for the contribution of the base app, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
So what is the background for doing the pilot for the contribution of the base app, or open sourcing? For the conversation, I'll continue to say open sourcing. I'm not certain if it's the right word for it. I like the collaboration of working on it, or the contributions to it.
Yeah, we can get into religious discussions about what open source is, and so we usually refer to it as a contribution model.
Yes,
but it's a collaboration platform. Yeah, well, what's the background? I mean, the background is, as I said, we started with the system application about 3 years ago. We wanted to start small and see, what comes out of it. Because previously we've had these collaboration projects with particular partners, and then there was a lot of talk. And then when it came to actually doing some work together, sometimes it led to nothing, or the code was not in a high enough quality that we could ever use it for anything, or, things just slowly faded out. So we were a little bit, I was curious to experience myself, what is the quality of the pull request, and what does the partner channel have to offer? Because you guys know as much, if not more, about what's going on out there at the customers, right? And what they need and how it's supposed to work, and you get more feedback. Sometimes we're a little bit isolated in here in our office. It's only that much information that we get, or used to get. That has changed a lot. So yeah, by starting with the system application, I got a feel for what's coming, and guys like KB were all over it and created some fantastic pull requests, like some great new horizontal modules. So then I was curious, if we can do all of that already in the system application, then what could that lead to if we actually go all the way and also allow you to collaborate with us on the base application, which is a completely different beast to tackle, right? Because it's this big monolith of spaghetti code partially, and you change one little bit here and you're going to break tons of localizations, and or the tests fall apart and everything, right? So then we tried, and by the pilot, it's maybe, I call it a pilot because we're not opening it up for everyone, because I need to set expectations. I will let anyone in. So there's not like, nah, you're not good enough, or you're not a strong enough partner, whatever. No, anyone who asks, I will happily allow into the pilot. But it comes with this little disclaimer that, you may create an issue, or you may create a pull request that we simply cannot tackle at the moment. We've how should I explain that? So I mean, as I said, the base application is vast, and we usually have a few boxes open at any given time.
Okay.
So for instance, right now, we're working on warehouse management and the likes of it. So our product managers will kind of already know, what they can accept and how that fits into the overall story of what we are doing with warehouse management at the moment. Now, if someone comes with a PR about, service management, that's a closed box at the moment. We're not really looking into it. We might in some future releases, but then if a PR comes in and then now our product managers need to look, how does that fit? And then that becomes very, very expensive for them to do, actually. So the disclaimer is simply, do come with your suggestions and do try us, and we'll see how it works. But we may say thanks, but no thanks.
Okay. So to take back to where, sort of, let's go to the beginning of the journey of somebody who would like to participate in this program. We can kind of walk through the process. You had mentioned that somebody would request access to partake in the pilot and contribute to it. What is required, or what are the requirements for somebody to participate, and how do they get into the pilot program to participate? Are there any prerequisites for a person or a member?
So usually I ask people to reach out to me on Yammer with a PM or Viva Engage, whatever it's called these days, because obviously I do want them to be from the partner channel. At some point, when we're going completely open, I guess anyone, even a novice developer right out of college, could just go ahead. But right now we're trying to target the partner channel. But other than that, send me a message and I will add you to the contributors list on the Business Central apps repository on GitHub. And now you've got access.
Okay. So now when somebody would send you a message on Yammer, Viva Engage, that is one thing I noticed with Microsoft is the names change every other day. Nothing changes as much as
it's beyond my control.
No, I know it's not beyond your control, but I say it is a somewhat of a joke within the community. 1 minute, if you look at AX, FNO, FNSCM, O, F, whatever that is at any given day of the week. So I call Yammer still because the Viva Engage we'll stick it in a minute, but I think it's funny. It keeps us all current. And to be honest with you, like I find with Business Central, I think they do it on purpose to date somebody's entrance into the community. Because if somebody says Navision to me, I know they've been around for a while. If they say Dynamics Nav, I know they came in, after 2013. And then if they say Business Central,
came in when it was...
so you can learn when they get in there. So the repository is hosted on GitHub, and what we'll do, we'll post in the show notes the GitHub repository link, so that way you don't have to state it, but if they want to have access to it, or is there an easy way for them to search for it on GitHub?
No, that's because it is still a private repository. I don't think actually it's searchable, so you will need the link.
Okay.
But if you reach out to me on Yammer, I'm going to send the link and everything you need to.
Okay, so we won't post the link because they won't be able to do anything with it, and it's completely private, so nobody can view it either, correct? Okay, so we'll go through Viva Engage, Chris. Viva Engage.
Viva Engage.
One thing which you need to have is a GitHub account, and it will requires you two-way authentication. I think it's two-factor authentication, right? So,
yes.
That's because Microsoft requires that. So.
Okay.
True. Good point.
So once you have a GitHub account, you can message Jesper on Viva Engage and he'll get you into that. Now, once I'm a member of this community, how do I get started?
Yeah, so I've prepared a short video, like maybe to just show, the mechanics of it. Maybe I'll just share my screen here.
Yes. If you awesome. The video, that's great. And anybody who wants to see the video, we will put this podcast on the YouTube channel, which we have a link for. And also we can kind of talk through the video too. I'm excited. We have a video.
Yeah, I could have done it live, but so let's just go over here. So let me just roll that video to show if you encounter a problem, then how would you go about reporting that and start working on it?
Okay.
So I took a few of the slides that I had from directions and tech days and other presentations, and one of them is actually this video, which is gonna walk us through how to get started.
Yes.
So
and I have a lot of questions too, so be ready.
Yeah. So let's just say you go to the demand forecast page in Business Central here, and you hover over and say, oh, what's the item number? And you see, okay, there are some nice tool tips there. What's the source type? Oh, well, there's no tooltip. So that's the scenario for this video, okay?
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So we go to our issues here. And the first thing that we want to do is we want to search if this actually exists already. And we'll see, there's nothing here. So we create a new issue. Now we can create a feature request, but that we shouldn't do here. Feature requests, they are covered through BC Ideas. So you should go to BC Idea and lock your idea instead. But small issues, we can actually create issues directly. Very important to notice is you should not create issues which have customer impact, like product defects and the likes of it. But in this case, a tooltip, no customer will be hurting. So we can easily go ahead and just create an issue for that. We give it a nice title. And we always try to know in the describe the issue section, we try to be as descriptive as possible because we at Microsoft need to read it and approve this idea if it's like worth fixing. Nice repro steps also very important, so that we can actually see what the behavior is. And then, of course, the expected behavior. What would you expect? How would you expect the product to behave? And now we kind of have everything we need on our end to assess if this is something that should be fixed. So we can then go over, I will then at some point see this new issue, and I will go in as myself, Jesper, and I'll see, does that make sense? Is that an issue that we would like to fix? And we can say, yeah, sure, tooltip is missing. That's definitely a paper cut, let's go ahead and get that fixed. But, now this is a constructed example. If it was a real life example, a little bit more complex, sometimes we need to ask a few more questions. In general, it will get the label approved because I agree that this is an issue. But, maybe we need a few more details on how we would like to fix that. So there will be a little bit of back and forth, and I could write, sounds good that you agree with my findings. That was what the partner would write. Okay. I would add something along the lines with, specifies the source type of the availability calculated. So, and with this back and forth, now, once I feel that the issue is well described and we agreed upon what will be fixed, then I will add another tag, which is very important. And that actually, with that tag, we're actually done. And you can start implementing, and that is ready for implementation. So now you do have an issue that has been approved and is ready to get implemented. So that's the process of how to get your issue, or how to get started with an issue, I guess.
Okay. So just to maybe recap, you would go into GitHub and you were not doing feature requests. The difference between a feature request and an issue is a feature request would maybe like a new piece of functionality or a new module. An issue would be something that is broken, but it's not a big impact on the system.
Exactly.
Okay. So from GitHub, if you want to make a new issue, you enter the issue, you put in the information, you fill in the information about your issue according to the template for an issue, which you put in the description, you put in steps to reproduce, and then what the outcome would be. At that point, you would review it, or somebody from Microsoft would review it. They'd mark it as approved. So up until it gets approved, you pretty much sit and wait until that review process occurs. Then yes. once it's approved, the person making the request can make comments or go back and forth with you, and then you'll mark it as ready for implementation or ready to implement. And at that point, they can develop their solution.
Yes.
Okay.
But exactly. Something which I have in mind is now that it doesn't need to be a developer who is doing these issues. Like this tooltip is a great story because you have like hundreds of consultants which probably every day see that, okay, there is a missing tooltip in such field. So why they cannot also create an issue and make the product better in this case? Because it doesn't mean that they need to fix it later, but Jesper team will just approve it. And whoever is just working on something can just add this tooltip. So it's not a big problem to add the tooltip, but anyway, someone already as a developer can do that.
Okay, so that is a very good point. And that was going to lead to get into maybe the feature request, but to that point, so that means I could raise an issue, but not necessarily be the one to develop it. I mean, could I create an issue, and would someone else have the option to assign it or work on it, or is there a process in place for that?
Yeah, so I mean, with these paper cuts, these small issues, that would be okay because they usually are of a small size, and maybe some novice developer or something could use adding a tooltip as the first issue to implement, to get trained. When it comes, I mean, what this shouldn't turn into is this big backlog of work where everyone just states what they would like the product to become.
Okay.
And that is why, if we're talking about larger features, the process is slightly different in the sense that I mean, if the change that you want to implement is a larger one, we want you to go through BC Ideas. I guess most people are aware of what BC Ideas is, painfully or not.
We won't
so
go
so
down the
and
road of that either.
what BC Ideas used to be is exactly that, right? You can, I mean, you will create your idea and say like, hey, I would like the Microsoft team to do this and this and that, and then you would need to get some votes from the community so that we can prioritize which is most important. And then you wait a couple of years, sometimes in the worst case, until we somehow, until we have the capacity to actually take that task on, or we think, now it's important enough with all the number of votes that we see. But what this now gives you, like the open source, is actually a shortcut to skip the line and just say like, well, I have this idea, and I don't care about too many, like how many people think it's a good idea. I will do it myself if you'll let me. So what we then are going to do is we're going to go through the ideas as we usually do, and then we're going to mark the ones that are open source candidates as open source candidates. And sometimes it's still a good idea to get votes, because we do only want to implement things into the base application that others also find valuable. Else the product could go into various weird directions that maybe isn't right. But sometimes, there are also BC ideas that were locked with the intent of being open source contributions, which we approve right away, even though they only have one vote, because our product managers can see that makes total sense. We should absolutely build that or have that in the product.
Okay.
So, and then when this idea gets approved as open source, what our product managers do, then that automatically turns into an issue too. And then you will find that issue in the list of approved issues.
Okay. See, I myself was confused on this because I wanted to participate, which we'll cover a couple of questions afterwards. So if we want to work on a feature request, we can go to BC Ideas, create an idea. Now, this is where I'm a little confused personally. And I just want to kind of go back to your explanation. That BC idea then gets marked in BC Ideas as an open source candidate, and then it gets put into the GitHub feature request, and then I can choose that to work on from GitHub? Or do I go into BC Ideas and then somehow say, Jesper, I want to work on this idea. What do you think? Like, where is the line, or how does that flow work?
Yeah, so I mean, it starts with the idea, and you could then in the comment section write, hey, I would be interested in participating or like contributing this idea, and we would receive that. And then our product managers would go in and assess if that is actually a feasible open source candidate. And the second that they add a little approved tag in our internal system, it now actually gets created as an issue on GitHub for you to start working on.
And then you can assign yourself. So
then you can assign yourself.
Yes. So I did that with someone create an idea on Idea portal. It can be a customer. To be honest, I even don't know who did that. And Jesper put it in the issues, in the open issues, and then you can just pick. Okay, this is nice. I need it, so I can do it. Or if in such case, so this is what I'm doing, for example, with item variants. Almost done. Sorry, Jesper.
Which idea?
Not yet. So in item variants, you didn't had possibility to put the pictures for the item variants, but now you will have.
I saw that thread.
Yes,
that's pretty cool.
The fun with this one is that, which also learned me some approach, and that you can do like a first draft version, and then there started discussion between people from the community as well. Oh, maybe we should have this as well in this pull request, or what do you think about this, and this? And that was really nice. Someone put that. To be honest, I don't remember the name, but then Microsoft team also commented, would it make sense or not to add this, because the request was only about the item variants, right? Or pictures in item variants. But then we thought, okay, should we add it to the API? Should we add it also to copy of the item? And so we could say, okay, let's do only this, and then we create another idea to improve it, or I can just do it with one go in this case.
Okay,
but the nice discussion is, so technically you can also discuss on GitHub, and everyone can approve it, or can just put the comments. So that's also great.
So that's great. So it becomes a collaborative effort, because you, as you had, just to go through the journey again, there's a BC idea that gets marked as open source. Once it gets marked as open source, it automatically becomes an issue in the GitHub issues list with a feature tag, I'm assuming, right? Is there another tag on it? Then I can go in and assign it to myself. Now, when I assign it to myself, at that point, when the issues, we said it was approved, ready to implement. Now, if there's a feature request that goes into an issue and I assign myself to it, do I just start working on it, or do I have to wait as well for some type of approval and ready to implement process?
No, so they will be approved. Sometimes we forget to approve them. I need to make some automation there, because obviously we already approved them as an idea. But we might need to have some discussions about how to implement it. And as Krzysztof said, sometimes actually even the community says like, hey, I like this idea, but have you considered all of these other scenarios which are super similar? And then we should go back like, hey, yeah, well, that's right. Given the new findings, are you still interested in doing it? Because sometimes, these ideas just grow as we discuss them, right? Initially, you might have had, as I said, like, well, there's a misalignment between, this functionality here and this functionality there. I will fix it. And then typically other partners chime in and say like, yeah, but there's also a misalignment here, and there. So now your work has, six-folded.
So you can set this, but you can set the scope as well. I mean, I'm assuming we want to make sure that we have, a complete solution, but there also could be a scope of it. And there is a collaboration that goes on for the pull request that gets submitted by, somebody developing the solution. Now, when someone creates a pull request, excuse me, I'm so excited to talk to both of you. I'm getting a little tongue-tied here, as I had mentioned to you before. What is the approval process for the pull request? Are there certain moderators that approve it? Is it a Microsoft approved, or is it a GitHub, member approval of, 3 approvers, for example? Or what is the approval process?
Krzysztof knows the pain of this. No, so this is actually what we've been trying to develop a little bit with the pilot. Previously, like in the system application, it was often that some community member would create a PR, and then it was kind of thrown over the fence to Microsoft, and we would be sitting here and trying to review it and get it in a shape that it can be checked in. And that was actually rather labor intensive and time consuming for us. So if you really want to be, serious with our open source ambitions, then that does not scale that way. We simply do not have the capacity to, review thousands of pull requests from the community. So that's why we then decided, well, we need to have some, some gates here. So one of them is obviously we are evolving our CI/CD. Everyone has access to ALGO for GitHub, right? We're using ALGO for GitHub as well. And we're evolving that to, iron out the biggest glitches in the PR. So it's going to run all the code caps given time. It's going to run the entire test suite. It's going to make sure everything compiles, obviously, and so on and so forth. It's going to be our very first line of defense. And once you've passed the CI and everything looks to be sound, now we need 2 community members to review the PR. Because the first one is make sure that this PR actually also by the community is accepted. And then if 2 members of the community say like, yeah, that looks about right and feels right, we should do this, then there needs to be a final review by someone from this building. That's for now. I'm not sure it's going to stay for that. Like maybe we just say like 5 reviews from the community is sufficient, and in it goes. But for now, we're still kind of like manual gatekeepers because the process is so young, and we need to iron out the glitches that we have in it.
I think it's good. The process will evolve, I think, as more members contribute. And you say, so is it any 2 members can approve it, or are there specific members? Like, do you have to be
any 2?
Okay, any two members can approve it.
I mean, ideally not your two best friends, that where we're beer like, hey, could you approve this one? And then
I was going to
good
put
if
in a
it's
bunch
like,
of stuff and ask you and KB to approve it. So just say, hey, let's see if
Oh,
we can
I'm
push this
really,
through.
to be honest, I will tell you that approving the pull request to a base app or in general for Microsoft like core product
I think
is totally different than you are approving the pull request to your own product or even your own modifications. But it's also the very nice point for learning on both sides. So developer can learn because maybe you can do something totally different, right? And then you get the questions, and sometimes it's not like just someone will just hit a button and that's all, right? So you little are responsible for the product. So this pushing the button to approve, it's just taking little more time in your head to, are you sure that it's like, you have that, okay, that will be, everyone will see that if you will approve this.
yes. So your name is on there.
Yeah, from one side is really fantastic, right? So if you're approving it, it also shows your skills, by the way, I think. So if you approving if you're approving something, you also say, okay, I can trust this code, right? So if you're approving something really wrong, we didn't see anything like that, but if you then also, like, personally it shows, if you're approving good things, then okay, that's the good developer as well. So just little selfish point of view.
I'm
but
going to run in
also
and
show-
find all the good things and just start clicking approve.
yeah. So this almost sounded a little bit scary what KB said there.
Okay,
So I
maybe
mean,
you should.
I think it's very important to say, like, it's not about ruining your reputation or getting a reputation. It is I mean, I think one of the biggest advantages or the biggest benefits of this open source is actually the learning that goes with it. So yeah,
That's
I mean,
true.
do make a pull request, and if someone reviews it for you, you learn a lot by all of these comments that you're receiving. Just as well as when you are reviewing, you're forced to look at someone else's code that maybe has a completely different angle to it than your ISV has, or so it's really a give and take, and it just benefits everyone.
Yes.
And at the end, you'll arrive at a solution that is actually a good solution.
I like the way that you put it, and to expand upon what you both had said. I think one way to get better, and what you can define better, is to put yourself out there, because we're not in a place where we just sit by ourselves. I mean, we all need to learn, we all need to improve. So sometimes taking that jump, and if somebody comments on it, it's not always derogatory. Sometimes, to me, it's more helpful. I've done a lot of work. I put myself out there and I get comments from people, and a lot of times people may contact me directly. So it's not even like they're trying to, shame you. It's, hey, did you think of this? Or maybe you can do it this way. And then we can have a growth discussion about how the product can get better and how the application can get better. So it is good to put yourself out there and try to work on some things, and even ask for help. Hey, I want to work on this. Can you have more than one person work on it? For example, hey, I'd like to do this. Can somebody help me? Push along. I think in a collaborative way.
So maybe yes, it shouldn't be. You shouldn't be scared.
So one of the things I think you answered for me was one of the comments I had in some discussions. The features and functionality that get added to the application stem from ideas, and they have to get approved from someone in the product group, which will help regulate what gets put into it. Because when I think of collaboration, or as we talked about for this discussion, open source, I could see that it could just run wild, right? So that everybody has all these features and functionality that they want to put into it because they think it would be the greatest thing that, everybody thinks they write the greatest stuff. So now you end up getting into this application which already does a lot, already has a lot to it, and we have to know a lot to work with it and implement it. And now it just expands, 10 times. So the product group at Microsoft does review what gets finally approved to be worked on and published.
Absolutely. But I mean, it does help if you have an idea that has 200-300 votes, right? I mean, that kind of is a strong indication that the rest of the community also feels that this is a worthwhile idea to get implemented. So before we reject something like that, it needs to be because we have some security performance concerns, or because we have some longer term vision where we want to go down a different route than is lined out in that idea.
Okay, good. And does that also adhere to any coding standards? You had mentioned that we have to go through the source code analyzers. Now, as far as, variable naming and although, structure, is there any technical review done other than the community review within GitHub? When Microsoft does the review, is there a technical review?
Yeah, I mean, we do hope that we can evolve the code cops to a degree where they actually are going to take care of all these things, because that's a level of review that is just too time consuming and with too little value. You named your variables wrong, or your indentation isn't right, but we obviously do want to have the code to feel uniform so that everyone who works in the base application feels at home, no matter which code unit you're visiting, right? It shouldn't be like, oh, this was clearly written by Brad, that was written by KB. That's because these are completely differently implemented. So, ideally, there's some kind of patterns and best practices to be followed.
Okay.
But again, these patterns and best practices are going to evolve as we go along, because here in this building, we train each other's, and so we kind of get the same coding style over time. Like, not exactly, but at least on the big lines. Whereas this is just insider knowledge, you could say, right? So we can sort of need to get that insider knowledge out of our brains and into some tooling that can help us do that. It's going to take
I'm
a while
all
as well.
excited now, and I'm re-energized to go back and contribute, because I won't tell anybody, but I did put my name on an issue many months ago, and I don't think I went back because I didn't have the time. But we'll talk about how to make time and what to do in those scenarios. For those, what I would call dead issues. Dead issues means no traction. But now I have another question for you.
Sounds so ominous.
Wait.
One more.
See, I used to know where these are.
DEFCON 1.
I lost one. Forget it. I just ruined my whole thing that I wanted to do. Oh, someone's at the door. Oh.
There's a question coming.
Oh, someone is. Question.
Oh, hey, how you doing? We have another guest. It's Brad who has another. I'm sorry. I'm having too much fun with this, and we have to add to the levity of this somehow. So now I have an issue from GitHub, and I'm ready to work on it. How do I modify the base app to ensure that my application works within the base app? For example, KB mentioned that he's working on a fabulous issue to add the pictures to the item variant. The item variant is part of the base app, right? You can either make an extension to extend the pictures and hope that there's events and all the code places available for you to extend it. But that's not what we'd want to deliver. We want to deliver it implemented as part of the base application. I know I need Docker, right? But with Docker, how do I get to publish the system in base app for me to be able to test my application? This is, one of the challenges. At first, when I first started working with it, I did figure out a way to do it, but there was a number of steps involved to be able to use, the BC container helper to get it working. But how does somebody go through this process? I kind of gave some of it away, but can you explain it to me?
Yeah, so this is actually something that we're working on to make it as easy as we possibly can. So after, of course, you need a few tools installed, but if you've already developed an AL, then you have all of these tools in Git and whatnot. So we're actually working on enabling a single script to run, and then it does all the magic, like it's part of ALGO for GitHub. It'll set up the container for you. It will pre-compile the base apps, the system app, all the first-party apps. Freddie is doing an awesome job in optimizing this script. So it kind of, it gets quicker and quicker. It used to take like 1.5 hours or something. Now we're down to, I think, 30 minutes. So you run the script and boom, you're set up. So I'm a little bit behind on documenting these things. I only have these in like speeded up videos and stuff. But now that I have a little bit of time, like after directions and all the release, I'm gonna try to
So
document this.
there is a script available, and that script will create a container and an application for you that you can publish to there, where you can modify and edit the base application.
Exactly.
Just one script that you can
Correct.
run now. Oh, that's easy. Where is
Yeah.
this script located?
It's in the repository. It's called local environment. Create local environment, I think. Jesper.
It's in the base app.
Let me show you. It's like,
Okay, so we'll see it on the screen. So it's in the.
So the most important is don't do what you normally do. Just like creating a Docker container with the script which you normally do in PowerShell, but just use this script which is in the repository. That saves a lot of time.
Oh, that does save a lot of time, because I had
Yes.
a number of things to do.
So yeah, you go in here and app. So first of all, I mean, you obviously clone this repository, or you create a fork and then you clone that repository. Maybe that's for a different topic.
Well, we can talk about that too. It's how you could do that, but this is getting your environment going. So in the Business Central's app on GitHub, there's an apps folder.
Yeah, and that's where, you know, all the first party apps, and here we've got the layers in that folder. You've got the base app and everything, and then we've also got modules which contains the system application. So that's like all the apps there are. And then there's this other folder which is called .algo. And this local dev env ps1 is actually the only thing. You go into PowerShell, you cd into your cloned or your forked and cloned repository that you have on your local machine. You run the script, and after half an hour, give or take, maybe one, depending on the machine size, you have it all set up for you.
Wow,
So
nice.
It is still work in progress. Every once in a while, it does fail or give you some grief, but you know, do let us know if that happens, and we'll help you.
Oh, that makes it so much nicer that you can just do one script to do it all. KB, is that what you use?
Yes. However, I used it a few weeks ago, so I had one additional thing to do after. There are some small parts of the code. I think Microsoft Jesper and Freddy is working already on that, which I just needed to comment. I think one or two code units were because of the .NET controls, right? So that was only one why I needed to comment, but you know, I didn't work in that. I will not push it, so it's not a big problem. You will just get an error when you try to publish to that container from that when you clone the repository. Nevertheless, it's pretty much easy to start. Run the script, try to publish it to your container, the base app. If you have any issues, just comment these parts with .NET, and that's all.
Okay. So, and then to go back to the process. So we have the issue you had mentioned. So now in GitHub, we can't work directly with the Microsoft base app repository. So we have our environment. Well, first thing we should do is we have the issues we're working on. We want to set up our environment. As you had mentioned, within GitHub, you would fork that to your own repository or your own GitHub account, right? Or your own set of repositories. So now you would have a forked copy of the repository. You would clone that to your development environment. Then in that development environment, you would run the PowerShell script in the ALGO folder for local environment. Go get a cup of coffee as it's running or a snack and come back, and hopefully it's all there. And at that point, as KB had mentioned, if you have some issues due to .NET variables, if you're not working within those, within that part of the application, commenting it out, you know, may not have an issue with what you're actually publishing. So you go through the normal development process, you make the modification change, you then commit it to your forked copy in your repository.
You forgot about the tests.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Wasn't that your section at directions?
Yes, it was. I'm a big advocate, and I push tests, and KB called me out, and I forgot it. So thank you for, no, I'm just kidding. But thank you for pointing that out. I appreciate it.
I love it.
But again, you want to make sure you run the automated tests or any tests that you have, either for the modification that you have or you have internal tests in there too. So you can run those. And then you publish it, you commit it to your repository, then you create a pull request. And then from there, the rest of the magic happens.
Exactly.
Wow, this is great.
It's a little bit tough to talk through. It kind of sounds complicated, but for directions, I did make a presentation around this where I tried to. That's also where the first recording was from. I tried to record the 3 pieces that you need to do and kind of speed it up and condense it, but going all the way from a completely newly paved machine to having your first pull request submitted. So I'm gonna work on kind of, maybe making a YouTube video or something with that people can then watch and follow along, because it is actually not that complicated when you see it in front of you.
And even I had some questions about this, and I do follow along with it, but I think breaking it down into the steps, and you had mentioned Freddie with the AL Go, I sat through his sessions, seeing it visually, it does sound just really complicated, but you can see it done. And even breaking it down into these steps of exactly what you need to do, assuming you know how to fork, assuming you know how to commit, assuming you know how to make a pull request, it doesn't sound as difficult to me. I think getting started, my difficulty thought would be, or was, for me personally, is how do I get to know what to work on? Then also, how do I get it so I can modify the base app? I think to me, those would be the most challenging pieces, but I think you did a great explanation of the overall process. Do you know how many issues have been committed to the base app as of this point?
Yeah, I think we're on, including the closed ones, above 150 or something, 160, 70.
Well, that's great. So there's 160 or 70 contributions to the base app.
Yeah, so there are 75 of them are open still, right? But we've closed 87 by now. So
I have to go back in there and get one.
Yeah,
I have a BC idea. I don't know if you know anybody, but it's actually with the AL compiler. It's not in the.
So that one is not open source. So that needs to go the usual way and hope that the compiler team picks it up.
I think I know who to talk to, so maybe we'll talk to him soon and ask him about that BC idea and push it in there.
But Brad, you also asked how to start. I think the best point to start is do the code reviews first. Just what we were talking before. Right?
Okay.
It's like we also with Henrik, we did one-time session that we were just talking, like having fun. I was doing something and we were on Teams and just doing pull requests. It was also so fun, and it was a really nice starting point to like get in speed with all the base up, and then you can just start contributing to it as well. And creating environments, and so that requires a little more engagement. You need to create a repository, go for a coffee, as we said. But nevertheless, if you're already starting the code reviews, then you very quickly will see that, okay, let's do the pull request as well, and just do with this script. So.
No, I like that idea. That is an excellent idea. You're kind of getting into it slowly so you can see the process before you start doing the process yourself and get an understanding of it. If I were to submit a pull request and that pull request was approved, how long does it typically take for it to get into the application? Does it come out with the major wave release? Will they come out with one of the minor updates? What is the expectation?
So currently, what the branches that we have out there, I mean, they are still currently a copy of our internal repositories, right? So we at Microsoft work on our internal repositories, and what you see out there on GitHub is merely a copy of that. And what we have is the current release branch. So like now we're in version 22, right? So what you will see out there is version 22.0 or 22.1 coming out in a couple of days, I guess. So, and that's why I now try to, if a PR is approved, I will port it to the next release. So that's 22.2 in this case, and then it will be out. So unless there are some internal, because now it goes to the internal build systems, and maybe you've broken some local versions, or maybe someone now internally does a code review and says like, nah, that's not going to fly, and then we need to take another iteration. But other than that, you can potentially, I mean, we've processed some fixes from the issue creation to productization within a month.
Okay.
That's how quick it can be.
So it can come out as quickly as the next update.
It can,
and
yeah, absolutely.
What,
sometimes they take longer. I mean, it's we've had some that also take half a year because there were so many iterations on it, and
no, that's
also
understandable.
People need to have time to work on it as well, right? So some of them, I mean, some of our community members do it during weekends or evenings after work.
Yes,
So
that's one of the challenges. KB does a lot, I know. How do you find the time to do this type of stuff?
Okay. I get that question this week, to be honest, like when I'm sleeping. But that's also a good point because, to be honest, quite a lot of things related to the community I can do in working hours. And that's not because I'm cheating my boss. He really knows about it as well. And he sees the value in that. So that's also very important. It doesn't mean that if you are contributing to business app, it must be like free. I mean, like no one is paying for that. It's rather like if you would like to share with or your customers would like to share it with others as well. So, or even if you are doing a product, to be honest, I don't need so much item variant. So that's I took these pictures for my product. However, if I would do the product, which is, for example, in fashion design, because I think it was from that, I could do it as a normal pull request during the working hour because my customers anyway need that feature. But the benefit which I'm doing is I don't need to maintain it anymore. So
that is a very good point. That is
yes.
a very good point. It will stay current within the application as the application evolves to do more things.
Exactly, and that's not my core feature. So it's not my IP. At some moment, Microsoft anyway would do it, or someone will do it, or someone will put on App Store something which is free in that area, right? So why 5 of us or everyone need to do the same thing and just let's do it once and have time for other things. So some of those things, well, as you said, I can just do because we see the value also in sharing, and it's paying off not only marketing things and so on, but it's also paying technically. Maybe not the base app, but our story from the system app is that we, as a company, we did SharePoint connector libraries. Jesper, remember that it took quite a time, but it was also a big thing, and we are using it every day in our product, and our customers are using on top of these libraries also the IP. But it's, to be honest, from technical perspective, as that's my area, it paid off almost next day because someone just fixed something for us, because they also started to using it. Then we had a discussion about adding new features. And in fact, someone from the community already did that before we did it. So giving that, it doesn't mean that it was for free for our customers. Okay, we're doing the product, but we did it working hours and still were able to contribute to anything, whatever it is, system or base up, it doesn't matter.
No, I like that. So that's how you find the time. I think
sometimes, yes.
Yeah,
sometimes it's after hours.
That's the dream that we're having, right? I mean, we all, I guess, when I say things are moving real fast and there are a lot of fish to fry at the moment, I think we can all agree to that. So I think the time where we compete on these commodities, like these fundamental building blocks, those days are over. Like also like in your last podcast, you hit on the point that that there's a different vibe now in the community. There's so much business to go around. There's enough for everyone. Like everyone gets their
Yes.
piece. So if we really want to go the last mile and really make fantastic software that is like that where we're just the latest and greatest what should we say, innovations are part of the product, then we cannot compete on something as essential as a SharePoint connector. So this example was that Krzysztof brought up is perfect.
I think
Like,
it's a great example, and your story, I think, magnifies the importance of doing this, because we all want Business Central to be, a widely used application, because everybody here, as we say, you eat from it. It helps, put food on our table. So, if you can go to a customer and say that this can interface with SharePoint and not have to charge them for it, it allows them to get into the application sooner, or cheaper, or even say, hey, I want to use it because another product already has it, so I'm going to go that way. So, your point of it not being free, you can get value from that modification downstream. And like you said, somebody else can fix something for you and help you, so your customers get the benefit without also, maybe getting a little frustrated. So they have a better journey with the product, right? Because that's one thing I always try to emphasize is let's have the customers have a great journey, because it makes them happy with the product, and they can tell people they're happy and not tell people how, they're not satisfied with it, or it doesn't do anything and it always requires a modification or something. So that's very important to me. So, wow, this is a lot of information and it's great. So I have to, let me see if I have any other sounds for us at this point. See, I didn't have to do this one.
But anyway, you did it.
I had to do it just because I did it. But I'd like to thank you both for taking the time to speak with me. I've been looking forward to this. I always look forward to, communicating with you both. You both do so much and you offer so much to the community. You re-energized me to try to figure out how to have some more time to go in and work with this. I have been playing with it. I haven't worked on any issues, but I will now. I'll make some time for it.
I'll be looking out for your PR.
Don't reject it. We have to, no, it's okay. I like the collaborative effort that you talked about. I think it's very important. So I hope everybody else feels the same way, that it is a good learning experience and it helps us all make the product better. So if you would, I'd like to say again, thank you for your time. If also you could tell everybody how to get in touch with you if they want to communicate with you after the show. I know we talked about some of it here, but if there's anything that you'd like to add to KB, to how somebody can communicate with you, find some of the great things that you're doing for the community.
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter and also on the blog. And now it will be how old I am, mynavblog.com. So, please don't buy mybcblog.com.
Oh, I'm going to write that down right now.
You better go get it, Krzysztof.
BC blog.
Get it right away.
I'm going to get that right now. Before we get over to Jesper, this BC beer now, I keep asking you when the next one is because I want to do it.
To be honest, we try to find a good time for it, and we even have a topic. I will not maybe share yet, but it's very hard because it's like a conference season right now. So in Europe, especially, we have Days of Knowledge Central, and you also can find me there, Days of Knowledge Nordic. And then we have BC Tech Days. So all those conferences are great, and join if you can. But we also have in US conference. So till July, it's really hard to find a day where more people can join. So we will see. But I promise we will do.
Okay. Well, let me know because I would like to participate. It could even be early in the morning. Yes. I'll have a beer. And BC Tech Days is one that I would love to attend, but I looked at the flights, and if there's an easy way to get somewhere to Antwerp from the East Coast without having like a 28-hour flight. Yeah. I looked at the flights, and I think swimming would be a little faster.
So either You can check Brussels, or you can check Amsterdam and then take a train. We have a lot of trains in Europe, but those two you should be fairly easy get to Europe and then to Antwerp. It's really good communicated.
Nice.
Oh, okay, so it's easy to get Amsterdam. I think there was a reasonable flight, or Brussels,
Yes.
and then it's an easy train ride. That's one thing that I am envious of, and I had mentioned it before. The public transit, I think, in Europe is much different than here in the United States. And I was talking with someone from Europe before, and they were like going to another country for dinner with their wife that night. It's like, and you have to put into the mindset here, it's such a big country, we have a lot of states. So in Europe,
Yes.
everyone travels country to country, like we go state to state. So then I was thinking,
But the
here we go
transportation
state to
sucks.
state. So we think of going to another country, it's a big deal. Yes. Well, the transportation sucks horribly, but that's why I was wondering about the train, because I guess you can easily travel again from Amsterdam, or I may reach out to you, because I wouldn't, the conference was reasonable, and I would like to start doing more in Europe, just because I want to experience it. So I would take some days to travel, but it's just, how do you get around, which we'll be talking about with somebody in an upcoming
Definitely,
podcast.
you need to
hopefully.
experience BC Tech Days. That's conferences for developers is like no other conferences like that. For
Okay.
sure.
I will change my flight options. And Jesper, how about yourself? How can someone communicate with you and also see the amazing things you're doing for the community?
Yeah, I think I'm mostly active on Twitter, like tweeting some little nuggets of wisdom or whatever you should call them. But other than that, yeah, I do of course have LinkedIn profile. I'm not that active on LinkedIn though, because I kind of got to pick my battles. But yeah, on Viva Engage as well, do PM me if there's anything I can help you with. If you get stuck, I'm always happy to assist in anything open source related. So yeah, Yammer Engage, or no, not Yammer Engage, Viva Engage or Yammer, or Twitter. That's probably the two best.
All right, we'll put your Twitter link on the show notes, and KB will put your blog as well as your Twitter handle. I think you're fairly active on Twitter as well. And thank you both very much for taking the time
Thank you.
to speak
Thanks
with
for
us.
having us.
I think it was a great conversation. And, you both promised me that you'd be regular guests, so I already have the next topic lined up for you. So we'll look to schedule that soon. Thank you again.
All
Ciao,
right.
ciao.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you.
Thank you, Kris, for your time for another episode of In the Dynamics Corner Chair. And thank you to our guests for participating.
Thank you, Brad, for your time. It is a wonderful episode of Dynamics Corner Chair. I would also like to thank our guests for joining us. Thank you for all of our listeners tuning in as well. You can find Brad at developerlife.com. That is DVLPRLIFE.com. And you can interact with them via Twitter, DVLPRLIFE. You can also find me at matalino.io, MATALINO.io. And my Twitter handle is Matalino16. And you can see those links down below in the show notes. Again, thank you, everyone. Thank you, and take care.